Thank you for taking time out of your day to join me as we talk about how to support a child who loves someone with a substance use disorder. You might be a parent or a grandparent, an aunt or an uncle, or some other caring adult who wants to know a little bit more about what you can do to ease the effect of this disease on a child you love. My name is Corey Trevena, and I am the Senior Director of Education at Caron Treatment Centers. In my role, I have the honor of offering programs and services to families who are navigating the challenges that substance use disorders bring with them. In the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to share some ideas on things you can do with children to help them develop their own resiliency so that they can thrive despite the challenges they might be facing. I hope you find some of the ideas or resources useful as you continue through your own journey. Before we jump into talking about how to best help children, I think it's important to reinforce the science that shows us that substance use disorders are a chronic disease. And just like all diseases, they affect the person who has the disease as well as everyone who loves the person with that disease. Whether it's cancer, diabetes, or substance use disorder, if you are part of a family where someone has been diagnosed with a disease, everyone is going to be affected by the disease, even the children. Even if the children are shielded from the disease as much as humanly possible, they will still be affected because families exist within a system. If one part of that system is directly impacted, the rest of the family is also impacted. So, what does the impact of the disease of substance use disorder look like for children? In families where substance abuse is present, relationships are challenged. Children growing up in a home with someone abusing substances may experience a disruption in their attachment to other people. Their ability to form healthy relationships might be impaired because their relationship with their loved one is a little bit impaired. Their loved one might be unresponsive to their needs at times because their loved one's struggling with the disease, and that does impact the bond between the loved one and the child. Routines can also be disrupted in a family where substance abuse is present, so it can feel chaotic to kids because they crave structure and consistency when they're developing and they're just trying to make sense of the world. Often, promises are broken as the person who has a substance use disorder is struggling and can't follow through on what they intended to do. Children can sometimes learn an unspoken message that they can't trust the people they love, which ends up interfering with their relationships because it's hard to have a close relationship with someone if you don't trust them. Fear is a common emotion in families where substance abuse is present. Along with inconsistent routines, there are a lot of unknowns that lead to the development of fear. Kids may ask questions like, how is my loved one going to act? Is my loved one so sick that they might die? Is there going to be tension or conflict or fighting at my house tonight? Children have big imaginations, and their imaginations can lead them to worry a lot and be afraid of what's going to happen next. Many families also feel like they are alone. They tend to isolate themselves out of fear of embarrassment or because they're just overwhelmed or for a variety of other reasons. And through that isolation, children can learn another unspoken message that they shouldn't talk to anyone about what their family is experiencing. And that later also affects their ability to communicate with others about how they're really feeling. And along with learning to not talk to anyone, family members can also learn to numb their feelings. Feelings can be painful because of the disappointment, the hurt, the anger. And those feelings are really powerful, so they learn how to shut them down. It's actually a brilliant coping mechanism in the moment, but later on, those kinds of defense mechanisms are part of what leads to long-term challenges in relationships later in life. Everyone in the family reacts individually to what they're experiencing, but there are some common responses that are true not just of the adults, but also of the children when a loved one is abusing substances. So some family members might engage in confronting. That could look like blaming and shaming their loved one. It could involve yelling and fighting and making threats with their loved one. Some family members engage in investigating. They tend to snoop or check their loved one's cell phones or their cars or go through their room and their possessions. and they might even follow the person. Other family members might avoid the whole situation. They tend to shut down and deny what's going on. They don't acknowledge that there's a problem, or they might just minimize what the problems are. Other family members might do more controlling of their loved one. They might try to micromanage what their loved one is doing. They might manipulate them or even try to bribe them into doing what they want them to do. Most family members tend to worry. We talked about that already, but that could look like not eating, not sleeping, just an overall sense of dread about what might be coming next, or obsessing about the health of their loved one. And finally, some family members engage in caretaking behaviors, which is sometimes referred to as enabling. So that could look like lying for their loved one or covering up for them. It could be trying to shield their loved one from any sort of consequences. It could also mean, and we see this sometimes in kids, where they try to take over the responsibilities of their loved one. So they might take over adult responsibilities to try to make up for what their loved one is experiencing. We believe that the single most important message that children should learn is that they are not alone. There are people who love and care about them no matter what's going on in their families. And there are a lot of other kids who are experiencing exactly or something similar to what they're experiencing. We also want kids to know that they should not feel ashamed by what's happening in their family. Shame is a powerful emotion. It leads people to believe that they're bad people, and kids have a way of believing that their loved one must use substances as a result of them being a bad kid. The child thinks, if only I was a better kid, my loved one wouldn't use substances anymore. So helping them to learn that substance use disorders are a disease and that the disease is the cause of their loved one's behavior is a huge help for kids, and it makes an impact on their ability to heal. And finally, we want children to know that it's not their fault. This goes along with helping them to understand that they shouldn't feel shame and that their loved one is using a substance because it is a disease. It helps them to understand that it is not their fault. One of the best sayings that was developed that we use in our program is called the 7 C's. And it goes like this: I didn't cause it, I can't cure it, I can't control it. I can help take care of myself by communicating my feelings, making healthy choices, and celebrating me. Those first 3 lines, I didn't cause it, I can't cure it, and I can't control it, reinforce everything we've been talking about. It helps the child to understand that there's nothing they do to cause it, relieving the child's guilt. It tells them that they can't cure it, which reinforces that they shouldn't take on roles that are not typical for a child. So no amount of cooking, cleaning, getting good grades, being a star athlete, or whatever else they might be doing to try to get their loved one to stop using substances is going to work, because they can't cure diseases. And that leads to teaching them that they can't control it either. Children have this magical thinking that they have more power than they really do, and these 3 lines help them see that they are just kids. The rest of the saying helps to remind them to focus on themselves. It helps them to see the need to learn to communicate their emotions, to make good choices for themselves, and to really embrace their own self-care. Teaching self-care to children is so important, especially because we as adults often struggle with this and don't do a great job of modeling it. In our program, we help kids develop these skills and really focus on reminding them to play and have fun. They need time to just be a kid. We encourage parents, caregivers, or other caring adults to really become familiar with the 12 steps for successful parenting for families affected by addiction. In step 1, we're told that we need to admit our powerlessness over our ability to protect our children from pain. This is so difficult. As caring adults, we want to be able to shield our children from all of the pain that they might experience, but it's really not possible. In step 2, we need to find hope in the belief that recovery is possible through faith. There is recovery for us as family members, there's recovery for our children, and there's recovery for our loved ones who have a substance use disorder. And in step 3, we're told that we need to reach out for help and acknowledge that we are not alone. Understanding that there are other people who have experienced similar things to us is very powerful in helping us in our own healing journey. In step 4, we are asked to take stock of ourselves as a parent. This is really hard, right? We need to acknowledge our strengths, but also acknowledge our weaknesses and the areas that we're struggling as a parent. In step 5, we're asked to share these parenting issues with others without self-recrimination. No blame here, but sharing with someone else the areas where you might be struggling, as well as where you find strength as a parent. And step 6, we need to become ready to change by giving up the demand to be perfect. Of course, we're always striving to get better, but we need to understand that we are not perfect parents, and that's okay. In step 7, we're asked to make conscious changes in our parenting by engaging in healthier parenting strategies. So, depending on your situation, this could be something as simple as just trying to have a sit-down family meal once a week, or not losing your patience at the end of the day with one of your children. Whatever change you make, it doesn't have to be a big change. It just has to be a step toward healthier parenting for your family. In step 8, we're asked to take responsibility for the effect our parenting has had on our kids and learn self-forgiveness. So, as parents, all of our actions affect our kids both positively and negatively. We need to be responsible for any negative impact we've had on our kids, whether we're the person who used substances and has the substance use disorder, or whether we're a spouse of the person with a substance use disorder, or the parent of another child with a substance use disorder. And know that we need to forgive ourselves for any negative effects that our kids may have experienced as a result of our decision making. And in step 9, we're asked to make amends to our kids through healthy parenting without overcompensating. So even though we've made mistakes, we don't want to have guilt and overcompensate for any of the mistakes that we've made in the past. Step 10 asks us to model being honest with ourselves and our children and create acceptance in our family for imperfection. So many families struggling with addiction have a focus on trying to achieve perfection. Modeling the behavior that it's okay not to be perfect is really important for us as adults in the lives of kids who have been impacted by a loved one's substance use. In step 11, we learn to accept our limits in life and find our true spiritual path while allowing our children to find theirs. And then in step 12, finally, we're asked to reach out to other parents in the spirit of giving and community, helping other parents who are new on this journey to understand that they are not alone, as we have felt alone in the past in our own journeys. Before ending the presentation, I want to share a few helpful resources with you. The first one is one that we use within our program for younger students, maybe elementary age students, and it's called An Elephant in the Living Room by Jill Hastings and Marion Typo. Another great resource that's available from the Betty Ford Center is the Beamer series, and this might be more appropriate for a little bit older audience, maybe a middle school age group, so also very worthwhile checking out. And the last resource that I want to highlight is called Understanding the Fall. It's another book that we use with our middle and high school children that does a good job of explaining in a little bit more detail what substance use disorder is. Thank you for your time in watching this presentation, and please know that Caron Treatment Centers is here to offer support to you, your family, your children, anyone who might be in need of help with substance use disorder. Thank you.